The sun was just breaking over the Portland, Oregon skyline on a gentle spring morning in 1998 when Abby Larson was born at St. Vincent Hospital. Sparrows chirped outside the window, as if welcoming her arrival. But 4 minutes later, her twin sister, Sophia Larson, let out her first cry. 4 minutes, a gap so small most would chuckle and say, "Twins. That's basically the same." Yet, for Abby's parents, Elizabeth and Robert, those 4 minutes drew a line between boundless love and quiet neglect. From her earliest years, Abby sensed the difference. It wasn't through childish reasoning but through fleeting glances that missed her, hugs that never came, and the way she was brushed aside like an afterthought. Sophia, with her golden curls and radiant smile, was always the little princess in their mother's eyes. Elizabeth called Sophia her precious gem, while Abby was just Abby. Be good and stay quiet while mommy's busy. The favoritism was stark in every mundane moment, carving wounds into Abby's heart that bled silently. At 4 years old, Sophia was gifted a shiny pink bicycle, complete with a floral basket and a bell that jingled with every turn. Abby, meanwhile, got their cousin Ethan's hand-me-down bike, squeaky brakes, torn seat, and peeling paint. Little Abby pedaled hard to keep up with Sophia, but each wobbly turn reminded her she was never the first choice. At 6, when they joined a ballet class, Sophia twirled in a custom-made white tutu, sparkling under the stage lights. Abby wore last year's faded costume, too short and threadbare, making her feel like a shadow on the stage. But the memory that cut deepest came on Christmas Eve when she was 7. Under the twinkling lights of the Christmas tree, Sophia squealed as she unwrapped a 3-story dollhouse, complete with glowing lights, opening windows, and a spiral staircase. Abby opened her box to find a plain hardcover notebook and a ballpoint pen. Elizabeth smiled and said, "I thought you'd like writing, Abby." That night, Abby lay in the dark, clutching the notebook, not out of love, but because it was the only thing she had to hold. The Christmas lights flickered outside her window, but her heart felt cold. The favoritism wasn't just in gifts. When Sophia fell off the backyard slide, scraping her knee lightly, Elizabeth rushed out as if it were a tragedy. She scooped Sophia up, sobbing, and retold the story to neighbors, friends, even the mailman for a week. But when Abby, climbing the tallest branch of the old oak in their yard, crashed to the ground, knees bloody, face streaked with dirt, Robert merely glanced through the kitchen window and said, "Abby's tough. Let her figure it out." No hug, no comfort, just a band-aid and a curt, "Wash your hands. Don't track dirt in the house." Abby learned not to cry. She learned not to need. And she learned to hide her feelings, because showing weakness only made her feel like a burden. In those lonely days, the only warmth came from her grandmother, Evelyn, living in Bozeman, Montana. Evelyn visited rarely, but each time she did, Abby felt like she was standing in sunlight. Evelyn didn't just ask if Abby was hungry or cold. She sat and listened to her talk about her little dreams, like becoming a writer or exploring the stars in the night sky. She called Abby Little Star, a name that made her feel special, even if just for a moment. Once, when Sophia flaunted a sparkling bracelet her mother had given her, Abby stood quietly in the corner. Evelyn slipped over and pressed a wooden hairclip into Abby's hand, her name delicately carved on it. "It's not fancy," she whispered, "but it's one of a kind. Just like you." That hairclip became Abby's treasure, something she wore whenever she felt invisible, a reminder that at least one person truly saw her. Despite being overlooked at home, Abby refused to let her pain define her. At Franklin Elementary, she discovered her gift for writing when her essay about a summer vacation was chosen to be read to the whole school. Standing on stage, Abby felt the thrill of applause for the first time, not from her parents, but from classmates and teachers who didn't carry the silent comparisons of her family. From then on, she wrote more short stories about forgotten girls, quiet sorrows, and dreams she never dared voice. Her pieces were published in the school newsletter, praised by teachers as mature beyond her years. In 5th grade, Abby won 2nd place in the school science fair with a homemade water filtration model crafted from recycled materials. On stage, her heart pounded as she searched the crowd for her mother's eyes. But Elizabeth wasn't there. She was busy snapping photos of Sophia next to her colorful clay volcano. Which didn't even work. When Abby brought her certificate home, Robert glanced at it, nodded, and said, "You're smart. I know you'll be fine." No pride, no praise, just a hollow acknowledgement. Abby learned to live in silence, where her family's indifference spoke its own language. Sophia only had to smile to be called charming. Abby had to win to be noticed, and even then, she was ignored. But instead of drowning in resentment, Abby chose to push forward. She promised herself that one day, the world out there would see her, not as Sophia's sister, but as Abigail Larson, an independent, resilient individual worthy of respect. Deep in her heart, a quiet fire of determination burned, waiting for the day it would blaze. The Manhattan skyline loomed through a veil of drizzle on a gray October morning in 2023 as Abby Larson stepped off the train at Penn Station, her suitcase rattling against the platform. At 25, she wasn't chasing dreams of fame or glamour. She was here to build a life on her own terms. Brick by hard-won brick. Behind her lay Portland, Oregon, a childhood shadowed by favoritism, and a family that never truly saw her. Ahead stretched New York City, a beast of a place that didn't coddle but rewarded those who could keep up. Abby was ready to run. She'd landed a job at Everin & Company, a top-tier audit firm headquartered on the 37th floor of a gleaming midtown tower. The offer came after her standout performance as a summer intern, a grueling unpaid stint where she'd soaked up every process, saved every sample file, and asked questions until her supervisors trusted her with real work. Now, as a junior associate, Abby faced a world of relentless deadlines, endless spreadsheets, and the sharp eyes of colleagues who'd been in the game for decades. The first week felt like being thrown into a blender, back-to-back meetings, emails piling up faster than she could answer, and a maze of financial jargon that made her head spin. But Abby wasn't fazed. She'd been fighting alone her whole life, cleaning classrooms at dawn, tutoring high schoolers to pay tuition, studying by lamplight while her twin sister, Sophia, partied. This was just a new battlefield. Her apartment was a shoebox on the Upper West Side, barely affordable on her starting salary. One bedroom, a kitchen that doubled as a living room, and a window staring at the brick wall of the building next door. No balcony, no skyline view, just the hum of the city outside. Abby didn't care. She hung a faded photo of her grandmother Evelyn, the only person who'd ever called her Little Star, and a string of thrift store fairy lights to make the place hers. Each morning, she woke at 5:30, brewed black coffee in a second-hand pot, and squeezed into a packed subway car, earbuds blaring indie rock as she clutched her work files. In a city where everyone chased something, power, money, Instagram likes, Abby chased one thing: the freedom to be herself. Unapologetically. At Everin & Company, Abby threw herself into the work with a hunger that surprised even her. She volunteered for extra projects, stayed late to untangle complex financial reports, and read advanced accounting texts in her spare time. Her colleagues noticed. "You're a machine, Larson," her teammate Marcus said one night as they burned the midnight oil on a client audit. Abby just smiled. She wasn't a machine. She was someone who'd learned early that no one would hand her anything. 6 months in, her supervisor, Lucinda Parks, pulled her aside. "You've got a knack for this, Abby. Keep it up, and you'll be leading teams sooner than you think." The words lit a spark in her chest. Not because she needed praise, but because they proved she was building something real. Outside work, Abby carved out time to grow. She enrolled in an evening course on financial data analysis at NYU, biking across town after long days to sit in a lecture hall with grad students twice her age. On weekends, she haunted a used bookstore on 84th Street, picking up dog-eared novels and nursing coffee in a corner by the window. One rainy Sunday, while reading The Bell Jar, she got an email from her project director. They wanted her to lead a new client audit, a multi-million-dollar account. Abby stared at the screen, her coffee going cold. 3 years ago, she was scrubbing floors to buy textbooks. Now, She was calling shots at a firm most MBAs only dreamed of. She didn't celebrate with champagne or selfies. She rode her beat-up bike home, cooked pasta with store-brand sauce, and smiled into the quiet. She didn't need a safety net like Sophia, who'd always had their parents' credit card and a cushy bank account. She'd built her own road, rough but hers. Her relationship with her family had faded to a distant hum. Her mother, Elizabeth, called occasionally, usually on Sundays, her voice clipped and polite. "Are you eating enough, Abby?" she'd ask. "Work keeping you busy?" Abby answered in monosyllables. "Yeah, I'm fine." The conversations never lasted more than 3 minutes. More like catching up with a distant acquaintance than a mother. Once, Elizabeth mentioned Sophia. "Your sister's thinking about a new certification. I told her to follow your lead." Abby murmured, "Okay," and let the silence stretch. There was no bitterness left. Just a quiet acceptance that their validation was irrelevant. Sophia texted now and then, sending selfies from seminars or job interviews at a financial consulting firm in Seattle. Her messages had lost their old show-off edge, replaced by a cautious sincerity, as if she was groping for a connection. "Got a job at a fintech startup," she wrote once. "Not where you are, but I'm trying." Abby replied with a brief, "Congrats." Keeping the distance she'd worked so hard to maintain. She didn't hate them, she just no longer belonged to their world. What Abby was building instead was a new kind of family. One forged not by blood but by respect and trust. At Everin & Company, she found allies in colleagues like Marcus, who'd sneak her coffee during late-night crunches, and Lucinda, who mentored her with tough but fair feedback. Outside work, she joined a mentoring program for senior accounting students at Columbia University. Something she wished she'd had as a struggling undergrad. Once a month, she sat with wide-eyed 20-year-olds, sharing her uneven journey. The nights she ate ramen to save cash. The mornings she mopped floors before class. The silent failures no one saw. "I used to think I needed my family's approval," she told them once, her voice steady. "But I learned you can fill your own cup. You don't need anyone else to tell you you're enough." A student, a shy girl with braids, lingered after the session. "Did it hurt, not having their support?" she asked. Abby looked out the window at the Hudson River, golden in the sunset. "Yeah," she admitted, "but it taught me how to stand on my own. That's worth more than their applause." Her big break came in spring 2025, when she was invited to speak at the Women in Finance Summit, a national conference held at the Marriott Marquis in Times Square. The email from the organizers left her breathless. They wanted her to deliver a keynote address to 800 attendees, executives, investors, and rising stars in the industry. Abby spent weeks crafting her speech, writing and rewriting until every word felt true. On the day of the event, she stood backstage in a sleek navy blazer she'd saved 3 paychecks to buy. Her old wooden hair clip, Evelyn's gift, tucked into her pocket for luck. The auditorium was a sea of faces, the air buzzing with anticipation. When her name was called, Abby stepped into the spotlight, heart pounding but hands steady. "Abigail Larson, Everin & Company," the host announced. From mopping college hallways to leading audits for multi-million-dollar clients, Abby's story is one of resilience, grit, and redefining success. The crowd leaned forward as she began, her voice clear and unflinching. She didn't sugarcoat her past, the childhood spent in Sophia's shadow, the parents who never showed up, the years of scraping by on scholarships and side gigs. She spoke of the girl who once celebrated a scholarship alone with a $5 cake, and the woman who now stood before them, unafraid to claim her worth. "We don't need anyone to validate us," she said, her words ringing through the hall. "Every time you get back up, every time you choose yourself over pleasing others, you're proving you're enough. The absence of support doesn't break you, it builds you stronger than you ever imagined." The applause was thunderous, rolling over her like a wave. As she stepped off the stage, an older woman in a tailored suit approached, gripping Abby's hand. "Thank you," she said, eyes shining. "You said what so many of us have felt but never voiced. You've given us permission to stop waiting." Abby nodded, a warmth spreading through her that no words could capture. Later, as she walked across the Brooklyn Bridge, the city lights shimmering on the East River. She felt a rare stillness inside. New York never slowed down. But for the first time, Abby wasn't running to catch up. She'd arrived. Abby didn't regret the years behind her. The pain, the loneliness, the empty chairs at her award ceremonies, they'd shaped her into someone real. Not perfect but fiercely alive. She'd chosen to love herself, to let go of old expectations, and to find meaning in her own victories. Her story wasn't just about surviving, it was about thriving. About rewriting what family, worth, and love could mean. As she stood on the bridge, the wind tugging at her coat, Abby knew this was no fairy tale ending. It was better. A beginning she'd earned, a life she'd built, and a future she'd face on her own terms. In a city that never slept, Abigail Larson was wide awake. And she was enough.